Hey guys, Julia here. Welcome back to another video, and today we're setting up my reflections journal for October. The theme this time around is Skull Florals, and it was the second place winner in the Patreon poll this month. We're going to be working with watercolors for this one, and I'm in a new notebook. You guys also voted for longer videos for these in the community tab, so let's get into it. This adorable notebook is from Notebook Therapy. There's no frills here, but it's a spiral bound, which I love, and it still has 160 GSM paper, which is also a plus. Hopping right into the cover page, I'm working on a sketchy skull with the brown Cricut fine liner and Pentel brush sign pen. For the petals, I'm going to be using a few different metallic watercolor palettes, and I'm mostly using watercolor just as a nice wash of color, not really pressuring myself with realism here, but instead just having a little fun. But as I'm finishing this up, I did want to thank you guys for weighing in on what you've been wanting to see with these reflections videos. With short form videos sort of taking off here and with TikTok and Reels, I was just unsure if I should pivot to that. And you guys know I work full time while doing these videos. We're on the road more and more, so I just want to provide the most value I can in the time I can. And so I just want to thank you again for that. But back to the spread, I've outlined everything and I'm gonna be darkening up those petals just a bit, leaving a little bit of that shiny yellow on each one. And I'm just going to be adding in some craft paper from my notepad and write in October and some script lettering here and finish this page off with some dots and sparkles per usual, because that's the ultimate way to jazz up any spread. But on the opposite page, I'm using this to write in my intentions for the month, and for the header here, I'm just adding in another skull flower with some different shaped petals, just for some variety. I've honestly always been quite terrified of drawing florals, but I've been making myself do it more recently, and this one is pretty easy because the petals are essentially 4 different blobs that I defined a bit more with the fine liner. But after some washi, that's gonna do it for this spread. Moving on to the daily reflection spreads, I'm getting in the skeleton of the spread first, just separating out each day for reflection space. And I've probably said this in every reflections video, but even if you don't yourself keep a reflections journal, these layouts can easily be used for a weekly task spread and a day-to-day bullet journal. For the decorations here, I'm just blobbing down a few different metallic colors for skull flowers along the side. They look a little bit crazy at first, but hang in there with me. Once I have the basic shape of the flowers here, I'm going back in with my fine liner to define the petals and adding in the skull at the center. A few of the flowers are at like an upright angle, and for those you don't even need the skull, so I'm leaving those as is. And since these are so small, I'm using a 005 fine liner to get as much detail as I can, but honestly, these are like super quick to knock out because there's not even much room for detail here. For the next reflection spread, I'm only doodling in 4 skull flowers, and these flowers are modeled after the star jasmine flower. So basically a flowy star with a skull in the middle. And I'm doing a few different angles here just for some fun and movement. But just like before, I did do just like little blobs in the basic shape that I wanted, and then I'm just going back over it with the fine liner once everything's all dry, and then drawing in the skull in the center. And I'm actually like doing like little scribble scrabbles like in the skull to make it look a little bit more textured. And then of course I have to add my sparkles because it's a part of the theme now. This layout allows for 8 different days, technically 16 since this will last me 2 years, but typically I wouldn't have much space for decoration, so I just use that center space to tie in the theme a bit more here. Moving on to the next reflection spread, I'm using the center of the spread all the way across to add in some decoration. This time I've got a couple of skulls with just some leaves popping out on the sides. I'm using a water brush with a pretty fine tip to be able to get a little bit more detail here. I'll have as many supplies as I can find down in the description as always, but same technique here. Get some color down, outline, and accent with dots and stars. I also grabbed a green fine liner on this one to add small leaves along with those dots. But this spread is divided into 4, so I get a little bit more reflection space here, and one full page will be for this year, and then the other page I'll return to next year to be able to compare. This next spread is similar to the first reflection spread, but I'm leaving the inside center open for decorative elements. And this ends up giving me like 70s vibes, which is fun, but just using all the flower colors I've used so far, and I'm just filling these rectangles in with little pom-pom blob shapes for the flowers. And then I'm revisiting that little leaf shape and just adding those like in the rectangle for this extra little sprinkle of something there. Once they're dry for the skull centers, I'm dotting them with a white Archer and Olive acrylograph pen and just adding dots and a little triangle for the skull. I was definitely thinking this was going to be a long process, but I'm pretty sure I finished this entire spread in like 15 minutes, if that. But since this is such a zoomed out view, there's not much detail here. The last reflection spread I think is a new layout for this journal, and I'm actually surprised it's the first time I've used this one, but it's a literal side-by-side layout where every large block is split into 2. The left one for this year and the right one for next year. And if you've never seen one of these setups before, the little blocks are for my mood, which I do have a key for in the beginning of the journal, but I moved my mood tracker over to this journal because it just seemed to make more sense to see maybe why or how my mood relates to the happenings for the day. But I had some extra room on this last page, so I'm adding in a bloom just as a reminder to keep growing, even if my center is literally death. But I'm finishing that off with some decorations I've been using throughout, and another one of those neat little star jasmine flowers. The last spread is always fun. It's a place to pop in any highlights for the month or photos, and so my job as far as setup here is just to create a nice border and background for all of those memories. I'm bringing back the craft paper for this one and the usual suspects as far as decoration with washi, dots, the little leaf shapes, and I'm throwing in one more skull flower down in the corner there. For this spread, I try to keep everything near the edges and try to keep in mind that some of this may be covered up by photos or other inserts, so keeping it fun but low-key is the goal here. So let's take one final look at all of the spreads for October. I absolutely love how shiny everything is and how different it is from my bullet journal theme this month. Definitely give this video a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all in the next one. And if you like this video, here are a couple more I think you would enjoy.